Good evening to you all. Good evening. Gyan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So I think we'll start. No, others will also join. Let's.
Yeah, okay.
Shall we? Yeah, if you are ready, we can.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm ready.
So good evening again. Right. Good evening again. Now today's I'm Dr. Asratna. So today is the second day of our case-based discussions. So last time also we had a very nice presentation and some case discussions. So this time again it's we are discussing a case related to obstetrics and gynecology. So basically a gynecological case and some MCQs, and Dr. Champika Gyan has very kindly agreed to talk to you on this case. So I don't think Dr. Champika Gyan needs any introduction. So he's a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist attached to Faculty of Medicine Peradeniya, so Department of Gyn and Obs. So he's again one of the brilliant alumni produced by the Faculty of Medicine. So without taking much of his time, may I invite Dr. Gyan Champika to do his presentation. Thank you, Gyan.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Daminda. Okay, so straight away, I suppose you people can see my screen. Can one of you can answer? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay, perfect. Right. Okay, so I'll be basically discussing, in the second series of PEMSA lectures, what we thought from the lessons that we learned from the first episode. We'll do case-based discussions or an exam-oriented fashion, or we'll cover some common clinical scenarios, the way that patients present, rather than, so that's why I selected this topic purposefully, rather than doing endometriosis or PID separately, where we have done or we'll be doing for juniors in future from each and every department, the particular pathologies. But again, what we have observed is the application from you all, the application by students in exam scenario, in the exam, final MBBS, is poor. So that's why we thought this new presentation, or the new way of doing lectures in the second episode. Right. So that's why I selected, as I asked from the seniors. Then they told, yes, it's good if we can, in syndrome in gynecology. So that's why I selected this lecture. Okay. Right. So we'll start from the case scenarios. I'm discussing four case scenarios. I'm just introducing at the beginning, and then we'll move to the clinical based approach for pelvic pain. Then I will be rediscussing these four scenarios at the end. Then at last, I will be discussing a few true, false, and SBS. Right. This is the first case scenario. 21-year-old unmarried university student presenting with painful menstruation for 1 year duration. She is getting absent from the university during monthly menstruation, and the pain does not relieve with simple analgesics like paracetamol or NSAIDs. Right? She's 21-year-old, dysmenorrhea for 1 year. So even though the word doesn't say secondary dysmenorrhea, it is implied here, right? Because she must have attained menarche during the normal, the usual age period, say 11 to 14 or 10 to 15, like. So now she's experiencing secondary dysmenorrhea for 1 year. So 1 year means she has started the pain full periods at the age of 20. So it is secondary. It is implied, right? Even though the word secondary dysmenorrhea word doesn't appear here. And what is meant by she is getting absent from the university? That means it is significantly affecting her quality of life or her day-to-day activities. And pain is severe because it is mentioned as the pain does not relieve with simple analgesics. Okay. What are your thoughts? It's difficult to have a sort of dialogue or a discussion via Zoom. Okay, I will move to the second scenario. 31-year-old school teacher presenting with pelvic pain and inability to conceive for 2 years. And there's additional symptom, dyspareunia. She's experiencing painful sexual intercourse. Her pain started 5 years ago. At that point, at the beginning, the pain was only during the menstruation. However, at present, her pain is there almost every day. And these symptoms have affected their marital relationship as well. Can someone say why at the beginning her pain was cyclical, but now she's experiencing daily pain? Why is that? Please, someone. Okay.
Disease has progressed.
Yeah, whatever the pathology, it has progressed. Right? I'm coming to that later with the particular disease pathologies. Good. And there's another thing here, subfertility. Right? The question doesn't say when she got married, but subfertile for 2 years. The pain started 5 years ago. Maybe at that time she's single, unmarried. Now pain has progressed. And the last sentence, again, effect on sexual well-being. Or in other words, it has affected to the relationship. Right? Right. The third scenario. 33-year-old coming with lower abdominal pain, pelvic pain, per vaginal yellowish discharge. And this is the third episode of similar presentation, and her first presentation has been 4 years ago. With every presentation, she had low-grade fever as well. Sorry, what are the possibilities?
Pelvic inflammatory disease.
Okay, good.
So it can be salpingitis.
Yeah, so PID includes oophorytis, salpingitis, endometritis, parametritis, whatever. So why it has become the third episode, similar presentation, third episode within 4 years. What it means. Anyone?
Precipitating factors are not treated in the earlier instances.
Bit unlikely. In that case, it is not episodic within 4 years. Then chronic infection is continuing. You know, maybe difficult for you all. It's okay. PID is a scenario. It's an entity with remissions and relapses. Right? Exactly not the partially treated. It going to remission, and then at one point it can relapse again. Again, chronic nature. With each and every relapse, the damage happens to the pelvic organs and lead to a chronic sequel. Okay, fourth scenario is a bit different. Again, unmarried girl presenting with sudden onset severe RIF pain. It is associated with nausea, sweating, and fainting. What do you mean by that? Second sentence. Nausea, sweating, and fainting. What do you call that particular group of symptoms?
Autonomic symptoms.
Exactly, autonomic symptoms. Right. On examination, RIF tender and guarding is present. On pelvic scan, 7 into 8 centimeter cystic mass probably arising from the right ovary. You know the diagnosis here, right? What is the diagnosis unless proven otherwise?
Ectopic pregnancy.
Torsion of the ovary.
Ovarian torsion.
Okay. That particular group is called ovarian cyst accidents. Torsion is one. Right? If you don't have this thing, if you don't have the scan findings, appendicitis is another DD, acute appendicitis. So now we are only discussing about gynae scenarios. So this is ovarian cyst accident, not only torsion. Rupture of the cyst or bleeding into cyst. Those are again cyst accidents. Right. Okay. So those are the, I would say those are the in a summary, in a nutshell, the first three presentations are the possibilities which you can get in your long case and which can be questioned in your theory papers. Right. Case scenario number 4. We checked this again in, I think, last exam in OSCE. Yeah. Acute RIF pain. It was going step by step. So at the beginning, you can give even DD's appendicitis because the presentation was admitting to the OPD or ETU or PCU. So then only we went down, narrowing down the DD. It was OSCE last year, I think in March this year. For your long cases, first three presentations are the options or are the, possibilities. You should be able to narrow down to any of these three scenarios usually. And this is an gynecological emergency, can be checked in essays or no, I think this question was in essay. Yeah, it appeared in the essay. So acute emergencies can be checked in the not in the long cases, in other entities. Okay, we'll move to the pelvic pain. This is the one that I downloaded from the Google Images. No bullshit guide for men navigating through the pelvic pain. So this is, after this lecture, I want you people to approach the pelvic pain in holistic manner, not in a tunneled, narrow down way. Okay. You should see the female with pelvic pain. Okay. Not only the endometriosis. Forget your final MBBS. You are you will be the healer for these, pathetic gynecological patients or helpless patients. So you should be able to see the female with pain, not only as a case of endometriosis. Because examiners, we check whether you are a good house officer, whether you are empathetic, sympathetic house officer. Right? So social history is also important, not only the say particular straightforward questions for pain. Right? Right. So I will be discussing the importance of this entity, then types of pelvic pains, causes, then most importantly, what you will encounter in your long cases, because pelvic pain is highly common long case scenario in long cases. I would say 35%, 40% will be having any pain component or pain syndrome in your long case. So clinical assessment, then after that, the management, investigation, treatment, and there's an entity, this particular entity has a long-term sequel. That's what we should understand, and that's what we should prevent or block the long-term sequel with early identification and early treatment. So we check, because it is important. So we check that in the exam. Then I'm going back to these 4 clinical scenarios, case-based discussion, and at the end, MCQs. Right. What is the importance of this entity? It's a common clinical scenario, obviously. And the other thing is patients, they do not present early. Why it is important? By the time they present, the disease must have progressed drastically, because it has been there untreated and neglected manner. And as healthcare professionals, again, we sometimes fail to diagnose this. Many do not receive diagnosis even after many years of presentation. These are the findings. And the pathologies are progressive, endometriosis and PID, time remissions and relapses. And this impairs the quality of life of a female. And it affects the economic, it affects the economy of the family and the social well-being of the female, then the marital relationship. So there's a heavy economic and social burden. Right. So this slide may give a good introduction or starting paragraph for a pelvic pain essay. That's why I told you should have a bird's eye view, or you should start with the holistic approach. Right. It's all about pain. So types of pelvic pain: acute pelvic pain, cyclical pelvic pain, and chronic pelvic pain. Acute pelvic pain, I think there's only one slide, which is not the scope of the lecture today. And we'll discuss cyclical pelvic pain, which is dysmenorrhea, or at the end, it can become chronic pelvic pain. Right, acute pelvic pain, ovarian cyst accidents, torsion, rupture, and bleeding into. And there are other possibilities which is related to early pregnancy, ectopic pregnancy, miscarriage, ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. Acute PID can come with present with acute pelvic pain, and there are non-gynecological causes: appendicitis, ureteric colic, severe urinary tract infection, diverticulitis. So non-gynecological causes. These three shows torsion. Your left upper and right upper, you can see the torsion. The pedicle has torted. Usually, simple ovary will not tort unless there's a cyst. And it's because of the long pedicle of, fairly long pedicle of infundibulopelvic ligament, it can tort around it. And the lower diagram, it has been there for a few hours or few days. Now the whole ovary with the cyst is necrosed. You can appreciate the blackish, dark or hemorrhagic appearance. That is necrosed ovary with the cyst. So this patient can lose an ovary. That's why we should act immediately. Right. Cyclical pelvic pain. This is dysmenorrhea. And this is the symptom which appears first. And during menstruation, yes, she's experiencing pelvic pain or dysmenorrhea. Same time, she may have other symptoms like symptoms related to the anterior organ, which is bladder, symptoms related to the posterior organ, to the uterus, which is the rectum. So she may experience LUTs and bowel symptoms like dyschezia, tenesmus, whatever. And this progresses to chronic pelvic pain. So she may give a nice natural history of the disease if you inquire, tactfully. And there's another cyclical pain, the entity of cryptomenorrhea, that is outflow tract obstruction to the menstrual blood from same perforated hymen or transverse vaginal septum. So then it also becomes sort of cyclical abdominal pain or cryptomenorrhea, that is because of tension developed from the hematometron or the blood-filled uterus. Right, now chronic pelvic pain, I think we discussed already. It is, the definition is non-cyclical lower abdominal or pelvic pain, at least which has been there for 3 to 6 months. And to label it as EPP, there should be an interference to her day-to-day activities, so it should impair her quality of life. Obviously, it's a symptom and it is not a diagnosis. Right. Causes of chronic pelvic pain or pelvic pain syndrome. Right. Because patient will not come and say, my pain is gynecological. One clue will be, if the pain associated with menstruation or increases menstruation, then you can assume this is something to do with gynecology, or it should be a gynecological pain. But patient comes and say to you, she's having pelvic pain. So you have to think and exclude non-gynecological causes as well. GU, GI, musculoskeletal, neurologic, and psychosomatic. Right. Out of gynecological causes, for your level, common things are, for the pain syndrome, common things are endometriosis, adenomyosis, which goes together because both can coexist. That is ectopic endometrium, presence of ectopic endometrium. If it is in the myometrium, we call it adenomyosis. If it is in the tube, pelvis, pelvic peritoneum, ovarian, chocolate cyst, then it is endometriosis. So both goes together. Then the other thing is pelvic infection, PID. The other causes, ovarian cyst, fibroids, pelvic congestion syndrome, that is hyperemic vascular pelvis, and pelvic outflow tract obstruction. GI causes, just for the completion, interstitial cystitis, urethritis, CA bladder. You must have learned these things in gynecology. Oh, sorry, in GU lectures. GI causes IBS, IBD, diverticulitis, chronic appendicitis, and hernias. Musculoskeletal, things like fibromyalgia. Neurologic causes, nerve entrapment. Psychosomatic, you know, chronic anxiety, depression, sexual or physical abuse. So you have to ask and exclude in your history. I'm coming to that later. Right. Now, I'm discussing when a patient comes with pain syndrome, pelvic pain, what should be your approach in your long case? Okay. Right. This is the way that you people behave in the exam. But if you understand the concepts, so this is one of the common scenario, pain syndrome, right? If you understand the concepts, principle, if you have an overall idea, it's very easy to tackle the pain syndrome in your gynae long case. Right, in the history, as I'm telling always, give a very good, attractive introduction. Give a summary of your gynecological problem that you are going to discuss within next 20 minutes. Right? First impression is the most important. The age matters. You know, you don't talk endometriosis in postmenopausal ladies. Okay. And occupation matters because this is something to do with impaired quality of life. It can affect her occupation. Parity, you can just mention that she's a mother of 2 children or she's nulliparous, because both these, the pathologies which are responsible for pain syndrome, same time causes subfertility. Right? Those are the 2 main concerns of this pain syndrome. These pathologies, pain and subfertility. Okay, so just tell she's a nulliparous lady, or even though she's married for 10 years, she's subfertile and she's nulliparous. Right, now then analyze the pain, whether it's cyclical or non-cyclical. If cyclical, the relationship with menstruation. The other things, site, nature, severity, you can give a visual analog scale or give a pain score. Ask from ask the severity from the patient, the radiation of pain, what are the aggravating and relieving factors. If need, the pain diary can be maintained for 3 months. We can ask her to maintain a pain diary to have a sort of objective assessment. Right, then dysmenorrhea. You know there are 2 types, primary and secondary. Primary is called spasmodic dysmenorrhea or painful menstruation, that which has been there from menarche, and it is only during menstruation. only during the particular bleeding periods or bleeding days. The secondary or congestive, that is pelvic congestion, maybe infective congestion, maybe non-infective congestion. Infective congestion is endometriosis. Non-infective congestion is endometriosis. Infective pelvic congestion is PID. Here, pain precedes menstruation, or same time pain outlasts menstruation. Say menstruation is during this period, pain is during this period. It's called pain outlasts menstruation. That is, pain begins even before the menstruation, and pain does not go away with stopping the menstruation. Even after, in the absence of menstruation, she is experiencing pain. Dyspareunia, another pain component. It should be deep dyspareunia, because superficial dyspareunia is, say, it's vaginismus. It is mainly the pathologies, the psychological. Why do they get, if there is a pelvic pathology, why do they get deep dyspareunia? That is because of whatever the pathology, involvement of the pouch of Douglas, rectovaginal septum, and uterosacral ligaments. Then the female will experience deep dyspareunia. So if there are endometriotic nodules in the pouch of Douglas, uterosacral ligaments, that will cause secondary deep dyspareunia. The pain is dull ache. You can ask the severity. Because of severe pain, patient may avoid sex, apereunia. And in severe pathologies, the pain lasts even after sex, 4 hours. The bleeding syndrome. In gynecology, even though patient comes with pain, you can't forget the bleeding. Ask whether her cycles are regular or irregular. Regular means her HPO axis is functioning properly. Then irregular means HPO axis is not functioning properly. That means HPO dysfunction is there. Then go into detail and analyze what are the possibilities for HPO dysfunction. Then heavy menstrual bleeding. Adenomyosis, ectopic endometrium within the myometrium, as well as fibroids, can cause heavy menstrual bleeding, which is regular. Because here the problem in adenomyosis and fibroids, especially mucosal fibroids, the problem or the pathology is at the uterine level. There is no problem at the HPO axis, so it is called regular HMB. Right. Then PID. There will be other features: fever, malaise, vaginal discharge. Any vaginal discharge, you have to ask 3 questions. The color, whether it's smelly, whether it is itchy. Smelly, malodorous, yellowish, itchy vaginal discharge is unless proven otherwise is infective. It is because of an infection. Past history of sexually transmitted infection because of chronic nature, time remissions and relapses. Then what about her sexual relationship? Whether she is, what you have to ask is whether she is in a stable relationship or unstable relationship. Okay, unstable means, sexual promiscuity. One partner is stable sexual relationship. Right, then ask about other gynecological symptoms. Pelvic heaviness, lumps, distension. That is because of fibroids. That's called local pressure symptoms. Then any history of acute presentation with an acute abdomen, right? If you are suspecting ovarian cyst. Then associated subfertility. You know, pain syndrome and subfertility goes in hand. Then for, you know, psychological causes, sexual abuse and gender-based violence. That is psychosomatic pain. Then use one sentence for each system: GUGIM, musculoskeletal, neuropsychiatric, to exclude a non-gynecological cause. My patient does not experience lower infrared symptoms. So you exclude GU pathology. And there are no associated bowel symptoms. Musculoskeletal, usually pain increases with movements. Neurological, you may find trigger points because of, say, nerve entrapment. Then psychiatric causes, you know, I don't know about psychiatry or psychiatry. So ask about past history. Okay. So use one sentence for each and every system to exclude. Then show your examiner that you have taught other DDs as well. Right. What about the other components in the history? Try to elicit the natural history of the disease. How was the progression of symptoms? In my second case scenario, I mentioned that at the beginning, her pain was cyclical. Now it is CPP or chronic pelvic pain, and she is experiencing pain on daily basis. And what are the investigations that she has done so far? If this is not the fresh patient or multiple admission, multiple investigation, treatment. So what investigation she had, and what is the summary of her treatments given? Right. And always ask about her plans, her wish, her concerns. What are her fertility plans? Because I'm coming to that later, we can't treat pain and subfertility together. So in that case, in your history, you have to highlight or emphasize what is her main concern. I'm repeating, if both are coexisting, the pain plus subfertility, you have to highlight and you have to tell your examiner what is her main concern. Because we can't treat both together. It should be very clear. Right, then past gynecological history. You know, in gynae history, you can't forget contraception and pap smear state. In your exam, you always tend to forget. Do not forget that. Smear status and contraception in each and every gynae patient. Then any pelvic surgeries, right? Because pelvic surgeries, maybe because she had endometriosis, PIDs in the past, or pelvic surgeries per se causes adhesions and may lead to a frozen pelvis, which can cause severe pain. And in endometriosis, there's a familial component, it's polygenic. So ask about family history. And some causes for subfertility, obviously endometriosis again, cause for subfertility. There is some familial component in some causes which can lead to subfertility. Okay, highlight the social impact. Highlight the impact on quality of life. Social well-being, psychological well-being, sexual well-being, and professional well-being, if the female is working. Right? Right. That is your long case history. Anything that you want to ask? Any question? Or we'll move to the examination. Any question? Can I know whether the people who are doing LCR, long clinical rotations, are you people in this lecture? That means 4th years.
Yes, sir.
And then what about the MSGOP people? Current 3rd year or kinakatti?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. 3rd years, don't get stressed. Maybe little bit novel to you all, but I don't think I'm going to discuss any hi-fi stuff. Don't worry, you have 2 more years. Okay. Seniors are already depressed, so you people don't get depressed. All right. Examination, I'm not going to discuss the general and systemic examination, right? Nothing. No, it's not that there is no direct relationship with the entity that the pain syndrome that I'm discussing today. So abdomen, I can't understand why in your exam, why you people can't follow the standard inspection, palpation, percussion, auscultation. Say about 2 weeks ago also we experienced. There is no word. I can't understand why. Maybe because you are stressed with adrenaline surge. The commonest mistake by say 10-15 people out of 28 the 2 weeks ago. You go for superficial palpation, inspection, superficial palpation, deep palpation, without doing palpation for organomegaly, right? That is hepatomegaly and splenomegaly and palatable kidneys. You are going for percussion. So what you people were doing is inspection, superficial palpation, deep palpation, then percussion for free fluid. Then when examiner asks, is that all? Then look for organomegaly, then you have to come back for palpation again. That is bread and butter, right? Basics. But inspection, surgical scars, laparoscopy, laparotomy. Because of chronic nature, as example, endometriosis, chronic nature, patient must have had multiple surgeries. You can inspect for hernias, but don't give a diagnosis. So this thing, because patient may be in supine position, and you know this is a gynecological long case, and we are not going to check surgical things. Then tenderness, then abdominopelvic masses. Sometimes large endometriomas can come to the abdomen from arising from the pelvis. Ovarian cyst, fibroids, so masses. Then if there's a mass, you have to differentiate whether this is a uterine mass or ovarian mass. To summarize, uterine mass, it is in the center, piriform shape. You cannot get below the lung, and the mass is movable in transverse direction, but not away from the pelvis. Ovarian mass is sided, right or left. It is rounded oval shape. Mobility in both directions because ovaries are mobile, and you can get below the lung. Those are the differentiating features, uterine masses versus ovarian masses. Now pelvic examination. There are two things, or basically three. Inspection of the perineum. Okay. Apart the labia. Give me a second. Okay. Oh, then mama may Zoom lecture can come in. Matak nana 6:30 and Sampat 7:15 can. Sampat goal at the Nukulan. Oh, Hadizie Sampat Berinang Tarak again, Tarak development color again. 7:15. Okay, can pass it. Asiri. Okay, thanks. Sorry. Someone is asking, what is the age cutoff of fertility measures in nulliparous and multiparous women? I didn't get it. What is the age cutoff for of fertility measures in nulliparous and multiparous? No, that's their wish. Patients, we can't decide for the female or the patient, right? The question is, what is the age cutoff of fertility wishes in nulliparous and multiparous women? No, that is their wish. We can't decide for female. We don't have the authority to take decisions on behalf of the female. Females are dominating, and it's their wish. Say when you people pass out, even after the COVID pandemic or epidemic or whatever, the Indakatya pass out in 2030 again. So then your age may be 40. So we have to entertain this thing. Requirement, fertility wishes. There are no cutoffs. That is patient safe. So sometimes even at 45, 50 patients says, I need a pregnancy. Okay. Right. So inspection of the perineum, then go for speculum. SC stand for speculum examination, not serum electrolytes. Use Casco's bivalve speculum or Sims speculum. The whole idea of speculum examination is to visualize the cervix and upper vaginal walls. Those are the two objectives. Mucopurulent vaginal discharge. You can see in the upper vagina coming through the os, that is PID. And endometrial, if it is endometriosis, sometimes you may see endometriotic deposits on the cervix and upper vagina, which is not that much common. Then always bimanual examination. Remove your left hand glove. Insert 2 fingers of your right hand to the vagina and keep your left hand on the pelvis, on the abdomen, hypogastric area and adnexia as well. The typical findings of frozen pelvis. Frozen pelvis means there are multiple adhesions. The typical findings will be retroverted fixed uterus. Uterus is retroverted and it is immobile. It is relatively immobile. It is fixed. If the uterus is uniformly enlarged, nicely enlarged, that is adenomyosis. Irregular enlargement, uterus fibroid. That is fibroid. Tender adnexia and adnexial masses may be endometriomas, fibroids, ovarian cysts. If it is PID, tubo-ovarian abscesses. Nodularity in the pouch of Douglas, uterosacral ligament, rectovaginal septum, that is this entity called deep-seated endometriosis. DSE, deep-seated endometriosis. Right. So these are the vaginal discharge from PID in this speculum examination. maybe chlamydia, Neisseria, trichomonas, BV bacteria. Investigations. So now you have taken the history, you have examined. Now, how are you going to investigate this pain syndrome? Start from simple as usual. Urinal disease, UFR and midstream urine for culture. Then do inflammatory markers. Then high vaginal swab or microbiological swabs. We do high vaginal swab for BV and trichomonas. Sorry, in trichomonas, H is missing. Endocervical swab for chlamydia and Neisseria. That is swabs for microbiological studies. Then freely available transvaginal scan or pelvic scan. Not only transvaginal, it's my mistake. So pelvic scan, maybe transabdominal, maybe transvaginal. It's adnexal masses, maybe tubular abscesses or endometriomas. Endometrioma is a, can someone say, what is an endometrioma? And how do you get an endometrioma? Please. How do you get an endometrioma?
Endometriotic deposits in the ovaries.
Yeah, it's a product of ovarian endometriosis. The late term is chocolate cyst. Then look for other features like adenomyosis and presence of fibroids. Pelvic scan. Anyone? What is the diagnosis? This is
Endometrium. The ground glass
endometrioma.
appearance, which is
This is an OSCE photograph. Huh? Why do you say so? This is endometrioma and endometriosis.
there is a ground glass appearance.
Sorry for that. There's a problem with connection. Give me a second. Someone has asked a question. Sir, what are the instances which we are using low vaginal swab? Low vaginal swab is where you can't go inside the upper vagina. That is, say, virgin or unmarried. Not unmarried, it's basically virgin. So you can't go and if you are taking the high vaginal swab, definitely you need to use the speculum. So so we can take a low vaginal swab in that scenario. Right. So what are those? What is the diagnosis? In the colored picture, what is your diagnosis? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is the diagnosis in the color picture?
Pelvic inflammatory disease.
PID, angry looking, say congested, angry looking, inflamed pelvis. There is some free fluid in the pouch of Douglas. That's where the sucker is there in the laparoscopy. The scan shows T-Borean abscesses. Right. So that is transvaginal scan, and this one is a laparoscopic image. Right. Then another investigation is laparoscopy, which is the gold standard. Right. So it is important in your SBAs and important in your long cases. You have to justify. The goal is standard to visualize the pelvis if the diagnosis is unclear or when the empirical treatment has failed. I'm coming to that later. Because initially we can treat empirically if there are no much concern. So failed response to empirical treatment, there's a place for laparoscopy. The advantage is you can see what is happening in the pelvis exactly, and same time you can treat. See and treat. Treatment is cystectomy, removal of the endometrioma, adhesiolysis, drainage of pelvic abscesses, myomectomy, whatever. So surgical. So if you are going for a radical, so we can do a laparoscopic total hysterectomy and self-invo, bilateral self-invocorectomy. So you see and treat. You see and select and treat. Right, treatment. Treatment for this pain syndrome. It may be a difficult entity if she's suffering from severe established pain. You may need a multidisciplinary approach. Okay. You may need to get the help from the pain team as well. You know, treatment is obviously depends on the cause. Right. Whether this is endometriosis, adenomyosis, or PID. And initially, we have to make a pain-free. So try simple analgesics. You know, in a step ladder manner, go to the higher classes of analgesics. You start from paracetamol and mefenamic acid, which is an NSAID, has a good effect on genitourinary system. Okay, so you start with those and go in the step ladder pattern. Right. If the diagnosis is unclear and the pain is cyclical, cyclical means associated menstruation, that may suggest it is an ovulatory pain, right? Because of monthly cycle or monthly cyclical hormonal changes, she is experiencing pain, right? cyclical pain may give a clue like that. So if there are no much concerns, even without a particular definite diagnosis, we can try a therapeutic trial. This has been checked in your SBS the past. Well, therapeutic trial by suppressing the ovulation and by blocking the HPO axis. This can be done even before doing a laparoscopy. All therapeutic trial. So how are you going to suppress the ovulation? By giving COCP, monthly or tricyclically, to make an ovulation. Monthly means, as usual, take 1 tablet daily and stop menstruation next cycle. Tricyclically means you are taking 3 packs of COCP at a stretch. Hormone tablets at a stretch, you take 3 packs. 21 tablets. 21 tablets into 3. So you take 63 tablets at a stretch. Then give a break. She will have menstruation. Take another 3. So she is bleeding every 60 to 70 days like. For tricycling. Then how are you going to block the HPO? In therapeutic trial by giving GnRH agonist. Okay. Right. If the pain responds to treatment, which is a therapeutic trial, we can assume that the pathology depends on the ovulation of ovarian hormones, which is, unless proven otherwise, endometriosis. As long as she is menstruating, as long as she is ovulating, cyclical hormone changes continue. Ectopic endometrium grows. Right? Ectopic endometrium also depends on the estrogen. It grows, and there will be inflammation with the bleeding. Then, if this therapeutic trial or empirical treatment fails, do a diagnostic laparoscopy. Always remember, pain management, you may need help from the other specialties. You as the gynecology team member, the pain team, physiotherapist, and psychologist. Pain, psychological. I think one is unmuted. One is unmuted, so there are disturbances. Can you please mute yourself? Right. Right. Then further management obviously depends on the cause. Right. So we'll discuss in brief. This is not a endometriosis or PID lecture. I will discuss in brief, but that is again more than enough for you to get a distinction in your long case. The brief management of endometriosis and PID. Another question. In tricyclically at stretch means there are no gaps between 21 days. Yes. Tricyclical may mean 3 hormone packets. She has to buy 3 hormone packets and take 1 hormone tablet, not the placebo, the iron tablet, 1 hormone tablet per day for continuously for 63 days. Okay. So during that period, she is not menstruating. That means ectopic endometrium also do not release blood or inflammation or hemocytic formation, nothing. So then it stop. Then she will have bleeding after say 2-3 days menstruation. Then again 3 packs, 3 hormone tablets. Sorry, 63 hormone tablets at a stretch. Okay. Then another question: can getting pregnant be a solution for this patient with endometriosis? Yes, exactly. Pregnancy is an answer. The problem is, but they may find difficulty in getting pregnant. But pregnancy is answer because in a pregnancy state, there are a lot of progesterones in the circulation. So progesterone is counteracting the estrogen action on endometrium, ectopic endometrium or utopic endometrium. So progesterone is the treatment for endometriosis. So pregnancy will suppress the disease for significant duration. Okay. Right. So endometriosis, you should know we need a quick diagnosis and early treatment because it is because of the progressive nature. In the world, there is very much delay from the onset of symptoms to the diagnosis, maybe even 7, 8, 10 years. By that, during that period, damage has happened, which is irreversible. Say damage to, say, endometrium formation, adhesion formation between ovary, uterus, and tubes. So damage has happened. Tubes are not functioning. We can't regain that function in tubes. Right. Then again, you should know, you should highlight these facts in your long case history. The treatment for endometriosis will depend on the primary symptom, primary concern, pain or subfertility. And if she has been treated so far, what were the side effects? Or if we are going to start treatment, we have to counsel the side effect profile of each and every treatment modality. Then availability of the treatment modality, cost to the patient, cost to the country, and what is the patient's wish. So in your own case, you have to mention about she's not, because of past experience, she is not happy with the GnRH agonist because of the side effect profile she had. So she may, she likes to try another hormonal option. So I would select COCP as the best next treatment for her. If my patient is willing for radical surgery or complete surgery, then I would plan her for total abdominal hysterectomy, bilateral self-oophorectomy. That should be the way of your presentation. It's not difficult, okay? Right. Then the management of endometriosis. Medical management. Medical management is always disease suppression, okay? We can't cure with medical management. It is only suppression during the period of treatment. COCP, cyclical or tricyclical, monthly or 2-3 monthly bleeding. So the GnRH analog, progestogens, you know, endometrium depends on the estrogen. So to counteract estrogen, you have to give progestogens. And LNGIUS, levonorgestrel releasing intrauterine system, which doesn't have systemic progesterone side effects. It may act on locally inside the around the uterus and inside the pelvis. Progestogens may have sometimes systemic side effects. Like weight gain, headache, depression, bloating, breast pain. Those are side effects of progesterone. So local LNGIUS will avoid the systemic side effects. Then surgical management for your level, for undergraduate level, I would divide into less radical surgery that means non-curative surgery, or the radical surgery, which is curative surgery. Less radical, if patient has fertility issues and she's too young for a radical surgery, what will be doing is excision of endometrioma matas, excision of endometriotic deposits, adhesiolysis. That is the it will be a temporary treatment for a short period. The cure or the radical surgery is you have to remove all TAH and BSO, or total hysterectomy and bilateral self-inguinectomy, with excision of all pelvic endometriosis. Or you may strip, or you can remove the parietal peritoneum as well, if there are multiple deposits on the peritoneum. That is the cure. There is one more question. Yes, in the secretory phase of normal menstrual cycle, even progesterone helps in thickening of the endometrium. If so, how can progesterone helps in treating endometriosis? No. In progesterone, the patient who is asking is saying progesterone causes thickening of the endometrium. No. It is secretory phase. It's not hyperplasia and thickening of the endometrium. Okay. Thickened endometrium, the concern is hyperplastic endometrium. Progesterone causes atrophy of the endometrium. Progesterone causes thickening, that is of the secretory phase, secretions. It's not because of hyperplasia and cell division. Progesterone causes atrophy of the endometrium. Right? So progesterone is counteracting estrogen effects. That's how progesterone helps in treating endometriosis. I hope he or she understands. Right, now the vaginal discharge. Again, now we are discussing treatment, but I purposefully included this slide to summarize. Okay. If your patient's presentation is vaginal discharge, these are the possibilities: physiological and pathological. Pathological is infective and non-infective. This is the summary or the nutshell. Physiological, estrogen related vaginal discharge in reproductive life. Vagina is not dry. There is ample amount of estrogen, so it is wet. In puberty, pregnancy, and when the patient is on COCP. Then cycle related physiological vaginal discharge in the mid-cycle. A female may experience vaginal discharge. And in physiological, again with sexual excitement, there will be discharge, obviously. Then pathological causes. Can I have cool water? There is no hurry. Infective causes. Again, we can divide into sexual transmitted infections, Trichomonas vaginalis, chlamydia, and gonorrhea. Non-STI, candida, and bacterial vaginosis. The non-infective causes for vaginal discharge: atrophic changes, atrophic cervicitis, atrophic vaginitis. Malignancy, cervical CA can present with vaginal discharge. And foreign body. If there is a foreign body, especially in young girls, or pre-pubertal girls, sometimes foreign bodies can give rise to vaginal discharge. Right. Then another question, can we use danazol for medical management? I think I am coming to that. We can use, but we don't use nowadays because of side effect profile. Another question, in endometriosis, does it cause annulation or is it subfertility due to damaged tube? The way in what he or she is asking is how endometriosis causes subfertility. There are nearly 10 ways how endometriosis causes subfertility. One thing is ovarian damage by endometriosis on the ovary or endometriomas. Then tubal damage, peritubal adhesion formation, adenomyosis. There are anti-sperm antibodies from endometriosis. Sometimes, because of deep dyspareunia, the female may avoid coitus. There are multiple ways how endometriosis can cause fertility issues. It's not serious stuff. Right. Then PID treatment. I just included one slide because this is not the objective. If there are large tubular abscesses, you need surgical drainage. If not, if patient is well, not systemically unwell, no fever, you can treat with antibiotic course. What are the IV antibiotic options? Ceftriaxone will be the best for IV. And oral, there are multiple drugs, doxycycline, metronidazole. Yeah. And there's one question, SBA from PID. Right. So again, another important slide, not directly related to the today's topic, but I want you people to understand these principles. There are principles of management of PID, treating the infection. Then all the STIs comes in package, so screen for other STIs as well. Then, if this is a sexual transmitted, contact tracing is important, and screen them for STI. And till we complete the surgery, usually the duration may be oral antibiotic duration may be 2 weeks. So avoid penetrative vaginal sex, or if she wants to have sex, use barrier methods till we finish the treatment of the female. Right. And I highlighted several times the long-term sequelae of this chronic pelvic pain. Progressive nature, the initial cyclical dysmenorrhea can become chronic pelvic, can have chronic pelvic, can progress to chronic pelvic pain. And I reiterate sexual and professional well-being. The subfertility, and because of endometriosis, PID, if she gets pregnant, there's a risk of ectopic pregnancy and ectopic pregnancy associated mortality and morbidity. Ruptured ectopic is an gynecological emergency. And because of social impact and financial impact or the occupational impact, with impaired quality of life, financial loss to the family as well as to the country as a whole. Because nowadays females are working, not like good olden days, the females are housewives and limited to kitchen. Now they are maybe breadwinners of the family. Another question. So if young unmarried patient diagnosed as endometriosis, what is the best treatment method? Medical or less radical surgery? I'm coming to that because there's a question, MCQ question from that. Okay. Right. Any question up to now? Any question? I'm going back to the scenarios that I discussed. And MCQs. Any question? You can, I don't mind, you can ask, unmute yourself and ask. Okay, we'll go back to case scenario 1. This is the one that one person asked. Oh, give me a second. There's a question. So, if a patient is experiencing chronic vaginal bleeding, normal uterine bleeding or menstrual bleeding, this is abnormal uterine bleeding. You know, big entities AUB, right? Big entities AUB. Under that, intermenstrual bleeding, postcoital bleeding, HMB, menstrual bleeding, all comes, right? The big entities AUB. If she is bleeding heavily, sort of objectively, if she is passing blood clots, if she is heavy anemic, then it is a HMB, right? Chronic vaginal bleeding nearly 10 months. I can't understand a scenario like that, but it's clear. The whole entity is AUB. If objectively she is bleeding heavily, passage of clots, anemia, that is HMB. So, how to differentiate ruptured ectopic from ovarian cyst accident? It may be difficult, but if the urine HCG or HCG is positive, there's a possibility of ectopic. HCG positive is there is a pregnancy wherever inside the pelvis. So if the clinical presentation is acute, maybe a ruptured ectopic. In ovarian cyst accidents, in straightforward cases, patients are not pregnant, HCGs are negative. Sometimes, if you are really unfortunate, can have pregnancy with the ovarian cyst accident. So it's a clinical assessment, scan findings, and biochemistry HCG. Okay, right. I'm going back to scenario 1. If you have further questions, you can stop me and ask, or you can type text in the chat box. 21-year-old unmarried, painful menstruation. Not really, pain is severe, not really with symptom analgesics, and it has impaired the quality of life. If her pelvic ultrasound scan is normal, what is the best management option? Give a therapeutic trial. Scan is normal. There are no large. Scan is normal means sometimes we may not be able to diagnose, endometriotic deposit in the scan, right? That doesn't exclude endometriosis. So she may have endometriotic deposits, nodules. We can't do a transvaginal scan. We can't examine vaginally because I have mentioned as Miss A, unmarried. Say in our setup, we will take it as sexually inactive. So, so give a therapeutic trial by suppressing HPO by this thing and make annulated. So what out of those options, what would be the best treatment mode for her? Anyone? Best treatment that would prescribe? Anyone? What would be the best treatment option for this girl? This is an SBA or a long case scenario.
Therapeutic
Please.
trial of COCP.
Yeah, good. Therapeutic trial of COCP. Exactly. We don't want to make her menopause, iatrogenically menopause by giving GnRH. She's too young. She is studying in the university. All of a sudden, she's become menopause by giving GnRH analogs by blocking this nasty. She can't study. She become menopause and hot flashes, sweating, insomnia, or lack of memory or poor concentration, poor memory. So it's not good. That's how you approach SBA. Another question. So even if ultrasound scan shows no increase in endometrial thickness, but if a postmenopausal female present with vaginal bleeding, do we go for a pupil biopsy? Thin endometrium, postmenopausal bleeding, look for atrophy, right? Atrophic vaginitis, atrophic cervicitis. So prescribe progesterone. Sorry. Prescribe estrogen for atrophic and hypoestrogenic symptoms. If endometrium is thin, she doesn't need biopsy unless she presents with multiple episodes of sorry, where were we? Sorry. One more question. Right, postmenopausal bleeding, unless there is recurrent PMB with thin endometrium, she doesn't need a history. But multiple presentation, multiple episodes of postmenopausal bleeding, low threshold for endometrial assessment or take a biopsy. Develop bowel adhesion due to endometriosis. What are the investigations to diagnose that? How about the change in bowel habits and persistent pain? What are the factors to diagnose that? Yeah, we can't diagnose, but unless we see in the laparoscopy, we can suspect. If patient is having pain while defecation, pain while opening bowels during menstrual period, during menstruation, she is getting bowel symptoms because there is inflammation going on with bleeding in ectopic endometriotic sites. So during that period, during menstruation, she may experience dysuria, pain at the end of maturation when the bladder is contracting, dyschezia, right? So those symptoms may relate to menstruation, but that is, we can't diagnose, we can suspect. We can't diagnose unless we see endometriotic deposits on the rectum, on the sigmoid colon, and adhesions around the rectum in the laparoscope. So we can't diagnose, we can suspect. Right. Case scenario 2. 31, married, pelvic pain, and some fertile. There's a nice natural history. the pelvic pain and chronic pelvic pain and deep dyspareunia. There's a nice natural history, initial cyclical, now it is chronic pelvic pain. And pain is severe, it has affected to their marital relationship. What is the next best in the management? You can, depending on the further information in the MCQ, next best should be in the, if pelvic scan has been done in the management, she need laparoscopy. She has enough symptoms and severe symptoms, and she has both problems, pain syndrome as well as subfertility. So do the laparoscopy, diagnostic as well as therapeutic. There should be additions, so adhesiolysis, excision of endometriomas, excision of endometriotic deposits, and try to, if possible. Then depending on her primary concern, pain or fertility, if there is fertility, after restoration, if there fertility concern, so her main concern is fertility, and she says she needs pregnancy. After restoration of the normal anatomy in the pelvis, start ovulation induction and IUI. If the concern is pain, suppress after surgery, suppress ovulation, no block the HPO. Give me further questions. Sir, can we exclude endometriosis if the laparoscopy is normal? Yes. In most of the times, but sometimes there may be microscopic disease in the peritoneum. The answer is there is no active endometriosis which can be seen macroscopically. Right? So, but there may be microscopic endometriosis which we can't see to the naked eye. Okay. Case scenario 3. Right? It is PID, you people told. And I have added another sentence. If there are large tube ovarian abscess, right. Case scenario 3. Large ovarian abscess. There, what is the best management option?
Surgical drainage of the abscess and starting IV.
Exactly. Antibiotics will not go inside the abscess. This large necrotic tissues. So you need to combine the surgery as well as antibiotics. Good. Right. Acute. Then what is the best management? There's a large ovarian cyst, 7 into 8. What is the best management? Huh? What is the best management?
Urgent laparatomy surgery.
Yeah, whatever laparotomy or laparoscopy can be done laparoscopically. Mentioned she's young, 28, she's Miss D, unmarried. We have to preserve the ovary if the ovary is still viable. Situation, immediate intervention. We can't postpone surgery because we have to detort or untort, then see the viability and preserve the ovary. Another question, sir, in endometriosis, if COCP therapeutic trial is positive, what is the next management step? What do you mean? COCP therapeutic trial is positive. Trial like a positive. Say if she has responded to COCP therapeutic trial, I suppose it is positive. I suppose it is she has responded to COCP. In that case, continue COCP because she has responded very well to the treatment. Right? Okay. So she has responded. So carry on with that. Okay. So I have covered long case scenarios. Those are coming in SBS as well. Now we'll move to MCQs. You know this was there in social medias, which I don't agree. Multiple choice question in exam be like this. No, the examiner or the creator of the writer of the question always giving clues to narrow down, and every sentence, every word, there's a meaning given with the purpose, and same time don't read in between lines. We are discussing the MCQs during the appointment. What I have observed is you people are reading in between lines. Okay. Don't read in between lines. Don't answer the question which is in your mind. Read the question. Don't miss the point which is given. Same time, don't read in between lines. Don't create hypothetical sentences. Right. True, false. The methods used in the treatment of endometriosis in a woman who does not need immediate fertility includes. Right. Methods used in the treatment of endometriosis where there are no fertility wishes. Right. So answers. If there are no fertility wishes, that means we can use ovulation suppression, right? DMPA, GnRH analogs can be used, right? So laparoscopic diathymic cauterization endometrioid deposits we can do. Continuous administration of combined oral contraceptive pills, continuous means tricyclical life, can be done. What about response 3? Laparoscopic cystectomy for 3 into 3 endometriotic cyst? No need. Because it is small endometrioma. By doing the cystectomy, we may damage the normal ovarian tissue as well, right? Because she may need future fertility. So to have a surgical intervention for endometrioma, it should be at least 4 to 5 centimeters, more than 4 to 5. So 3 into 3 endometrioma, we can wait without operating or cystectomy. Okay. Second, methods using the treatment of endometriosis in an infertile woman include laparoscopic, nothing to hinder, nothing to obstruct the fertility. Laparoscopic adhesiolisis, yes, that will restore the anatomy. Laparoscopic cystectomy, relatively large endometrioma, 4 into 5, we need to have surgical intervention. Then hormonal suppression. You can close your eyes and answer. DMPA, GnRH will make her anovulatory, will block her HPO. So she will not be, she's not going to be fertile, definitely. So if the fertility is concerned, those hormonal options are out. True, 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 and false, false. Okay. Easy question. Dyspareunia is caused by adenomyosis, benign ovarian tumors, fibroids, menopause, pelvic endometriosis. Tell me true answers.
Adenomyosis, menopause, pelvic endometriosis, and also fibroids.
Not the ovarian tumors or fibroids. Because those are not characteristic features, right? So characteristic pathologies. Adenomyosis, pelvic endometriosis, you know. Menopause, obviously because of hypoestrogenism and lack of lubrication, that is superficial dyspareunia, but question doesn't specify with the superficial only. Benign ovarian tumors or the fibroids are not classic pathologies. Okay, SBA. 38 years old woman, 2 children, who's having 2 children, chronic pelvic pain, dysmenorrhea, and dyspareunia. There is in the transvaginal scan, small endometrioma. She has no fertility wishes. What is the first line? In your question, it is not underlined, right? So you have to underline it and you have to give the emphasis to that. Answer. First line.
B.
D. Fourth one.
D. Second.
Second one. Yes, correct. Tricyclical COCP. Right? Laparoscopy may be correct, but your answer is laparoscopic cystectomy. It is out for a small endometrium. GnRH agonists are not the first line, that is second line because of side effect profile. Danazol has androgenic side effects which are irreversible. Voice changes, masculinization, those are irreversible. So because of side effect profile, danazol is out. And COCP superior to DMPA. So first line is COCP. Okay. That's how you have to go step by step in working out. 35-year-old mother of 3 complains pelvic pain, dyspareunia for 6 months. Bowel and urinary functions are normal. Ultrasound did not reveal any abnormalities. What is the next step in the management? Next step in the management? Answer?
Answer B.
Which one? Fourth?
Perform laparoscopy.
Laparoscopy.
Therapeutic trial is COC.
Yeah. Next step now. We can give a therapeutic trial. Next step, right? Not the best, but the next. So why it's for 6 months duration. Scan is normal. But I understand we can't see minor endometrial deposits. We'll give a therapeutic trial. Next step, as the next step. We don't have any grounds to give antibiotics. There is no PID feature. No need of 3D ultrasound or MRI. Laparoscopy, we can avoid a surgery. We can avoid a risk of anesthesia. So we'll give a therapeutic trial and see. Okay. "44-year with 1 child of 5 years. Child's age is 5 years. Complain of chronic pelvic pain, severe dysmenorrhea, which outlast the menstruation, and dyspareunia for 3 years. There's a laparoscopic cystectomy has been performed for a similar endometriotic cyst in the past. Her quality of life is significantly impaired. She is 44. What is the best treatment option? Tell me. 44, severe symptom, previous surgery.
Hysterectomy.
Yeah. Best treatment. Best treatment option is complete radical surgery. She's 44 anyway. Her fertility is impaired because of ovarian aging. Forget the endometriosis. She's not going to reproduce. Ovarian damage because of age and endometriosis. What I am asking is best treatment. Right? I think the last question. 30-year-old, low abdominal pain with purulent vaginal discharge, fever, high WBC, high CRP. Culture swabs has been taken. Best first line, that is theory, which I didn't include in my slide. The treatment, there is a PID regime, which you will learn, you must have learned in PID lectures. Single dose of intramuscular ceftriaxone followed by metronidazole and doxycycline for 2 weeks. It is a regime. It's a fact. You should know. Nothing working out. It's a fact. Okay, that concludes my lecture. Any question? Thank you for the pain of listening or concentrate. I think you people ask questions and send me text and messages. If you have further questions, email me. My name is my email, champikagihan@yahoo.com. So even the flyer, what you call it, lecture invitation. Yeah, it's the name was printed mistakenly, wrong way. Champikagihan@yahoo.com is my email. Yeah, so please email me if you have any questions. You can cut and paste and CQs. Please understand the concepts or the principles of approach into pelvic pain. Later you can learn the facts if you know the principles. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
So,
I think, yeah.
Yes, we would like to thank you for the lecture and MCQ discussion, sir. It would very helpful for final years and also fourth and third years as well. And as well as always, would like to thank Tushar Kudagaman sir and Duminda sir.
Okay,
Thank
it's
you
our
very much.
pleasure. Yeah, it's our pleasure always. On behalf of PEMSA, yeah, it's our pleasure always. Okay, we'll wind up the session.